Good morning, everybody. I'm ready to start. I just need confirmation that my audio is okay. You just type yes if you can hear me, and then I begin. Okay. Yesterday, I mistakenly thought we were supposed to have the lecture. I think in my program, I'm a day ahead. So that is why I kept on sending those messages. But one thing I discovered, the Eastern Gate is still closed. So coming to campus is also an inconvenience. I'll continue working from home until that time when we are supposed to meet face to face. But once in a while, I will be dropping by in office. My office is done, though the work was not satisfactory, but that is what they could do. When I teach in the morning, in the afternoon, I'll try as much as possible to pass via campus. And now when you look at this course outline, number 3, online cataloging using Core, we are done. And it is good a number of you have messaged me showing what you have done, the challenges. Unfortunately, I'm not able to respond to most of the challenges on phone. It is better you ask when we meet in the class. Today, I want to move to the general rules that we use in cataloging, moving from area O up to the tracing area. And as I do this, number 1, we are reviewing what we have already covered. And the number 2, I'm focusing on area 3. Area 3, we have not looked at it as yet, but it is that area that handles non-book materials. Things like maps will be handled under area 3, electronic resources, periodicals or journals are all handled under area 3. So as I move from area O to 1, area 2, my target is getting to area 3. So what I'm looking at today, we have already seen a part of it, but we shall be seeing new things. So that is what I intend to cover today. I'll be slow such that we don't miss anything. So I'll stop the share and then share again what we have in PowerPoint. Area O is something we already know, but let's get through it one more time. The name for area O is content form and media type. Those who took the time to catalog using Core, you must have seen in tag 3 where media type and other terms were appearing. Indeed, that is where they put area O. To me, it looked funny. I expected this to be in tag O, but it was put under tag 3. Area O is assigned the number 0, and this is newly labeled content form and media type area. Before area O was introduced, it used to be called general material designation. or in short GMD. And this used to appear after the title proper. But when the rules were revised, the GMD is no longer applicable. Now we have the newly labeled content form and media type area, and it has 3 mandatory elements. The first one is content form, content qualification, and then media type. All along, we have been using content form, and for books, we have been using the term text. So these other two, we have not applied as yet. So that is what I'm targeting from this presentation. When was Area O started? It was in 2009. So for those of you who have been cataloging, before 2009, we were using the GMD, or the General Material Designation. Then, as some introductory notes, the purpose of the content form and media type area, which is Area O, is to indicate at the very beginning of the record both the fundamental forms in which the content of a resource is expressed and the types of carrier used to convey that content. So in other words, when you access the catalog for a particular entry at the very beginning of the entry, you are able to determine which type of resource that you'll be looking at. So that is the idea. You don't waste time. If it is an electronic book, then you know you would need a computer for you to be able to use that gadget. The content form and the media type area comprises 3 elements. And the first one is content form, where one or more terms reflecting the fundamental forms in which the content of a resource is expressed. And I said earlier, this we have briefly handled for books, and we have been using the term text. However, we shall be seeing content qualification and media type. We have content qualification, and this, please, does not refer to the qualification that we have been seeing after the ISBN. So the content qualification specify the type, sensory nature, dimensionality, and the presence or absence of motion for the resource being described. In other words, what content qualification does, it indicates to you what sense you'll be using, the dimensions of the material, whether there is motion, that is movement, or there isn't, of the resource that you are cataloging. Then lastly, the third element is media type. It indicates the carrier. In other words, the material that you are cataloging, what carrier was used to present that material. Is it on film? Is it electronic in nature, such that you need, for instance, a computer? Is it online, like a website? So that is what we shall indicate under media type. Then we have punctuations that we use, and these are standard, the recommended punctuation. For instance, content qualification terms are enclosed in parentheses immediately following the content form term. For example, if this was the content form, we would give it, for instance, the term text. If there was content qualification, then we would enclose the content qualification in parentheses. So this is the pattern, the basic pattern, where you have only a content form and then content qualification. So after giving the content form, you will provide the content qualification if it is applicable in these parentheses. That is one of the possible patterns of how we can combine those elements in area O. However, when different content qualification terms are applicable to one content form, each subsequent content qualification term is preceded by a space, semicolon, space. In other words, in this example, when we have one content form and then we have two content qualifications, we combine those two content qualifications using a space, semicolon, space before giving the second one. If there is a third one, we would apply a semicolon there and then give the third one. So in brief, I want to just show you the examples of how you will be structuring area O if you have all the elements. In the first example, highlighted in blue, there's content form, there's one content qualification, which is in parentheses, and then there's a media type. So when we are giving the media type, the punctuation device we use is a space, colon, space before the media type. I want to move away from this slide. Of course, there are other patterns. I'll just highlight the second one. We have one content form, and then it has two content qualifications with one media type. So you can see the second pattern has two content qualifications. So it is wider than the first one. Then the third one, it has two content forms. You imagine you have text here, and then you have another term here. Then one content qualification and one media type. The next one content form, one content qualification. Then another content form and another content qualification. So we have a combination of two content forms with their content qualification. So the punctuation device we use is a full stop before mentioning or transcribing the second item. And then they have one media type. And lastly, the one in blue, one content form, one content qualification, and then a media type. But we apply a plus sign if this same material is given in another content form before giving the content form, content qualification, and the media type. For instance, you could be having a book, and that very book is also available on a DVD. So the first pattern will be when you are describing the book up to there. And then the second pattern after the plus sign will be the description of that book, the same book on a DVD. I will continue, but I'll jump that slide and move to the other terms we can use. The content form terms that we can use include the number 9, text, which everybody is familiar with. When we are cataloging books, the content form term we use in area O is text. Why am I displaying this now? The reason is that other than text, we have other terms like data set, image, movement, music, object, program, sounds, spoken word, of course, text, multiple content forms, and other content form. So I'm trying to introduce to you other terms other than text that we shall be using in area O. And these terms arise simply because we shall be dealing with non-book materials. So I'll go backwards and then look at content form in detail. Content form is a mandatory field. Just like in core, you saw some fields were required. What that meant is that those fields are a must. You cannot proceed to the next tag if you have not filled them, or you cannot even save. So content form is mandatory. It is a required field. And the content form categories reflect the fundamental forms in which the content of a resource is expressed. And we shall use a term or terms from the following list. And these are the terms that I displayed earlier. So those are the content form terms which we shall be using for area O to reflect the content form. I'll go through this slide for works of mixed content, and I tried to explain that earlier. You can have a resource which is either in book form and also in DVD form. That one is an example of mixed content where there is a predominant part of the resource. For instance, all parts are equally prominent or important. We shall record in alphabetical order as many terms as are applicable to the resource being described. So for instance, it is a text, it is also a spoken word, then those are two various content form terms. If they both apply to the material being cataloged, then we shall, of course, record them, but in alphabetical order. Alternatively, for resources comprising mixed content, where 3 or more forms are applicable. Now, when it becomes 3 or more, then the term we shall use will be multiple content forms. We shall not list the forms, we shall just give the word multiple content form. And now back to the terms. So this is what I mentioned last. Multiple content forms is when you have one rather more than 3 of these, or 3. Instead of giving the 3 anywhere from this, we should give the term multiple content forms. So just take note of these terms. And I know number 9, we know it is for books. But data set, we shall see when we apply data set. Image, straight away when we are cataloging a map, the term to use is image. Then movement, these are materials where there is movement, especially motion pictures or films. There's music, objects, especially when we are cataloging museum materials, then most of them are objects, etc., etc. I'll first stop the share to confirm that everything is okay. I don't see any questions, maybe till when I get to the real stuff, we shall be answering questions. But for now, just take note of these terms that we shall be using for content form. Next slide. Content qualification, very new. We have not applied it yet because most of the books we were dealing with were hard copy books. We didn't, or print books. We did not handle any non-print material, but we shall see that content qualification is mandatory if applicable. A content form category may be expanded by one or more content qualification subcategories if applicable to the resource we are cataloging. And content qualifications, they specify the type, presence or absence of motion, dimensionality, and sensory nature for the resources being described. And when we talk of type, presence or absence of motion, dimensionality or dimension, and sensory nature, there are particular terms that we use. And those terms include what I'm displaying in the next slide. So the terms which we shall use to specify content qualification have those terms which are specification of type. What type of material is it? And we have three types: cartographic, notated, and performed. So basically these are the specification of type. The first one, cartographic, is used when the material we are cataloging is representing the whole or part of the earth or any celestial body. These are water bodies, oceans, lakes, at any scale. And they include maps, atlases, globes, relief models, all those materials that represent the earth or part of the earth are referred to as cartographic materials. So in case we were cataloging a map, for instance, and I want you to note this. When we are cataloging a map, the content form term we use is image. But in brackets, we shall give a content qualification term, which is cartographic. And before I move, I want to show you an example of that. The examples are 8. So I'll just move to this page, which has examples of area O. The first example, this is an audio CD. In case we were cataloging an audio CD, those CDs which have music, sound without pictures, then the term we use for content form is music, but the content qualification term is performed. And then, of course, the media type is audio. But this is not what I was targeting. There are other examples here. I was interested in a map, and we have an example here. This is a tactile map. A tactile map are those maps for people who are blind. So because it is a map, the content form term to use is image. Content qualification term is cartographic. And because it is for the people who are blind, we have a second content qualification term, which is tactile. I wanted to show you that example such that we continue when we at least know how that information is presented. But still, because we are looking at the type for cartographic, I need, other than looking at the other examples in this slide, I need to move forward and show you an example which has all the details. This is a globe, but I want a map in case I have one. Yes, we have a map here. How shall we record the area of a map? You see, this is area O. When we are starting our entry, area O, the term we shall notice image, and the content qualification term in brackets is cartographic. And that is all we need to do. Previously, if it was a book, we'll just record the content form term, text, and we'll stop there. But now this is a map. So I will go backwards. Having seen how area O looks like when you are cataloging a map, just take note that the content form term to use is image, but the content qualification term is cartographic. And you will notice that I've bolded this because my emphasis is on area O. Then area 1 will follow area 2. Maps don't have addition statements, but in case you get a map with 1, we'll record it there. And then area 3 is the new area we shall be handling. And you can see how this looks like for a map. And then the other areas are recorded the way we have been recording them. I'll go backwards to the slide where I was looking at content qualification, and we had started with specification of type. So under the content qualification terms, I've just started with the specification of type, where the type was for those cartographic materials. So cartographic is content representing the whole or part of the earth or any water body at any scale. It includes maps, atlases, globes, and relief models. In case you don't know what a relief model is, we shall go to Google and search for this. Alternatively, we go to Google and get a definition of cartographic. I want to first stop the share, and interestingly, I have not seen any questions in the chat. Therefore, I can now move to Google and then get a quick definition of cartographic. I will share my screen. So I'm in Google, and I'll go to google.com and search for cartographic. Cartographic. And my spelling is cartographic, and I want to complete it with the word materials because there are many. Cartographic materials examples. We start. Cartographic materials include 2- and 3-dimensional maps and plans, including maps of imaginary places, aeronautical. Those are maps taken from above. Then we have navigational maps and celestial charts, atlases, globes, block diagrams, sections, aerial photographs with the cartographic purpose, bird's eye views. So that is the guidance you have. What are cartographic materials? You click there and then you get that definition. And still you can see these include maps, globes, and 3-dimensional maps and terrain models. So in case you are not sure of which material you have, then you can use some of these online resources to know how to handle. I will stop the share and then go back to the presentation, and then we proceed, assuming that we are comfortable where we are. Notated another specification of type. This is content expressed through a notational system for artistic purposes, e.g. music, dance, staging, intended to be perceived visually. So what is the meaning of notated? And this refers to materials where we are dealing with music, dance, or staging. So I'll still do the same. I'll stop the share and then share another screen and then search. Oh, incidentally, I'd closed that screen. I need to get it. Okay, it is back. I'll go back and share my screen. What is the meaning of notated? And from here we can see notated music and the synonym. For instance, I'll just go for notated. What does it mean? Writing something, typically music in notation. The recorded music can then be notated and played back. That is when they are using that word notated. Is it noted or notated? It is this one, notated. What does notate? I want more examples. So I go back and this time I want to get a clearer meaning. Now notation means a series of or system of written symbols used to represent numbers, amounts, or elements in something such as music or mathematics. I'm more interested in that one of music. So I'll say notation meaning in music. And why was I picking on that? I wanted you to see some images of music notation. Some of them are here. I need to get them in bigger format. This is a better one. Music notation. So those of you who sing in choirs, you have seen some of these things. I studied music in S1 and I failed it because of these things. So I could not comprehend what they mean because each of those signs means something. So that is how simply I can show you. In fact, there is a better image here. These are the things we used to draw. From here, we see it as an ampersand or and sign, but that is not what it means. Then these ones. So these are music notations. So when we have such materials which are notated in cataloging, and I'm stopping this share, when I go back to our presentation, it is those ones we are referring to, notated. So specification of type, which is notated. This is content expressed through a notational system for artistic purposes, e.g. music, dance, staging, which is intended to be seen using the eyes. So that is the second type of content qualification. We saw cartographic, now this notated. And then the third one, specification of type, is when we have materials which are performed. When we use this term performed, this is used for content expressed in inaudible or visible form at a given time and recorded in a resource. It includes recorded performances of music or movement. It can also include computer-generated music, etc. So this is any content which is expressed in inaudible or visible form, more or less like audio-visual. There is audio and then there is the visual. So for such materials, in case you have music, which is giving you sound, and you can also see the images, then that music is performed, and this is the content qualification term we shall use. For instance, if we had a film or a DVD for Shiba, and we were cataloging it, we would start with the content form term, which is music. Then in brackets, we shall put performed. I hope that has started making sense. Before I move to another specification of motion, I want to see the examples. How is music described in the examples I have here? I had one in the first slide. We have examples. The first one, this is music which is performed, and then it is audio. It means when we have an audio CD, we shall give the term music as the content form term, and then the content qualification term, it is performed, but the media type, we specify that indeed it is audio. So if it is audio, it means it can be something else, because we have not reached a media type. So this is the example I wanted people to look at, that in case you have a CD for any artist, so for area O, you would indicate that it is music. This is the content form term. And then the content qualification term, you would indicate that it is performed. And the media type would indicate that it is audio. And then music can also be notated. Like those images we saw, the notated one is different from the performed. So the comment they are giving on this is a sheet of music. It is like one page of music with those signs we saw earlier. In case we are cataloging that, and then that is how we shall record area O. And you'll notice that I keep on moving back and forth. I'll go backwards to where we were to look at the last one, specification of motion. Remember, we have just looked at the specification of type, where we had 3 categories, where we have cartographic, notated, or performed. That is specification of type. But we have also specification of motion, which is next. It means there is movement, and movement can only happen with images. If you look at your pictures on your phones, those images are stationary, they are not moving. But there are also images on your phone which are in form of video. And then those ones have motion. So when we are specifying motion, it only happens to materials which are images. And it can either be moving or it can be still. So there are 2 specifications. So specification of motion, this is used with the content form image only. In other words, when the material we are cataloging is in form of images, that is when we can specify the motion. Either it is moving or it is still. So motion is the perceived presence or absence of movement in the image content of a resource. And number 1, moving, this is image content that is perceived to be in motion, usually by means of quick succession of images. So this is how movies appear. The same image appears very many times, and then you'll get that perception that the image is moving. Then the second specification of motion is still. These are image content that are perceived to be static. Now, interestingly, I don't know what is happening in campus, but I see very many posters on the roads thrown on the roads. I think people are looking for votes. Now our task will be to catalog those posters. And when we are cataloging those posters, the content qualification term, which indicates motion, will be still. We shall start with the content form term image, then in brackets, we shall put still, because posters, they don't have any movement. So this is used for those images which are static. They don't move. So motion, we have moving and then still. Before I move to specification of dimensionality, I want to say fast forward if I have an example of an image, and indeed I do. There is the first one. This is a map. Remember, maps are also images. So if it is a map and this is a map for the blind, the content form term is image, but the content qualification terms we have two: cartographic, which indicates it is a map, and tactile, which indicates it is for people who are blind. I want to see more examples where we have a poster. So I'll move forward to the examples which are detailed. This is a globe. I don't need that. This is a map. You can still see that this is the content form term and this is the content qualification. And now a poster. Pick any one of those posters you are seeing around. When we are cataloging them, the content form term is image and the content qualification term is still, before we embark on the title and statement of responsibility. Edition, I've never seen an edition statement in any of those posters, though we can easily tell the edition. For instance, if we take Robert Kyagulanyi, the posters he used when he was campaigning for MP are not the same posters he used for presidential. So in one way or the other, we can determine the edition. It can be the MP edition or the presidential edition. So, but in most cases, posters won't give you that info. I hope for posters, we are clear with how area O would look like. The rest of these areas we handle the same way we have been handling, but we shall see the difference in the physical description. You can see in this one, we just mentioned that it is one poster, and then further indicated that, of course, it is an illustration and the dimension. So that is the example I wanted to pick before I go backwards. I look now at the specification of dimensionality. And I want to take you back to show you that we started from specification of type. And now we looked at specification of motion, where we see the moving and those which are not moving. And now the next specification is one of dimensionality, which is also used with images. It cannot be used for other materials which are not images. The following terms should be used when this type of content qualification cannot be deduced from the content form. For instance, when you have a map and the content form term cannot show which dimensions that map has, then we have to go ahead and specify the dimensionality. So the following are the terms that are available. We have the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 5-dimensional. So for 2-dimensional, these are image contents that is perceived to be seen in 2 dimensions. 3, it is 3 dimensions, and 5 is one which can be seen in 5 dimensions. I have not seen any movie in 5D, though 3D I've seen. So it is such content where we might need to specify that indeed it is 3D, 5D, or 2D. So that is to do with images only. It is applicable when the content form is an image. Lastly, sensory specification. This is where you have to use some sense, or you have 5 senses. Is one of smell, touching, etc. This attribute refers to a human sense through which the content of a resource as published is intended to be perceived. And the following terms should be used when this type of content qualification cannot be deduced from the content form. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is oral content. This is where we have to use the hearing, the ears. So if the material you are cataloging, the user needs to use their ears to get the content, then we shall put this as the content specification, oral content. Then gustatory content is where we have to use that sense of taste. Olfactory content, where we have to use the sense of smell. And tactile content is intended to be perceived through touch. Anything for the blind, then we shall use tactile content. Then visual content, where the eyes are the ones to use for you to be able to see what that content is about. And most of these we might never use because we only use them if the material we are cataloging applies to them. Next, and the next is the last element. Remember, we have 3 elements: content form, content qualification, and lastly, media type. And I'll take you backwards where we started from, the patterns. And indeed, it is this slide of the patterns. We have content form as one of the elements in area O, content qualification, and then media type. So now we are on media type. Content form we saw, and for today, the new term we have been using is image, because for books we use text. And the content qualifications we have seen those which specify type. We have seen those that specify motion. And lastly, we saw those that specify dimension. So it depends on the content form you are dealing with, and then that is when you know the content qualification to use. But for now, let us look at the media type. So I move forward to see the media, the element of media type. And I will stop on that slide such that you can read through and also confirm what is on this phone. At times you send me messages alerting me that you cannot hear, you can't see the screen. That is why I keep on moving to the phone. But interestingly, there is no message. Oh, there are 4 messages which I had not seen. Someone was asking whether they have logged in cataloging. But that one is not for us to handle. So I'll check in the chat first. And there's something already from Ellen. Can I also give the content qualification as video, or you meant visual, and I'm saying no, that term is not provided for. And then Shakira, can we catalog a single song? Yes. We shall. You have never heard of singles. Someone releases one song and then they disappear from the scene. Yes, such materials we shall receive in our music libraries, and then we have to catalog them. And then Mary Gloria, I'm not understanding, more especially the content qualification terms. Gloria, we shall get more examples and you will understand. Remember, this is the first day. We have not cataloged any material. I've just been showing you examples. But when we start, we shall even get maps. And this is some of the content why face-to-face lectures become important. In other words, I bring the material in class, you feel it, you touch it, you can look at it, such that when I say this is a map, meaning that you need to use your eyes to see that it is a map, therefore the content form term is image. You also see that indeed it is an image. And then because it is representing the earth, therefore the content qualification term that we use is cartographic. And the cartographic is used when we have maps, atlases, globes. So some of this stuff, and I think we are not far away from the physical meetings, we shall be able to understand better when we meet in class. The only challenge is the evening class. I'm not going to combine the classes, and I'm going to follow the timetable. Why? There is that element of that I don't care attitude from the people who make the timetable. They know curfew is at 7, but they have not bothered to adjust the timetable. So if you timetable me to teach from 5 to 7, we shall meet from 5, maybe up to 6. And then we see how we meet the curfew times. But of course, if you decide otherwise, we can readjust the timings, but I'll be following the timetable. So media type, it is mandatory if applicable. Media type categories record the types of carrier. So carrier is like the casing or the medium. Where is that material kept? So media type categories record the types of carrier used to convey the content of the resource. Categories generally reflect the format of the storage medium and the housing of a carrier in combination with the type of the intermediation device. This is the device you use to access that material, either by viewing, running, etc. A term or terms from the following list are given in the language and script chosen by the cataloging agents. You remember in core, they were mentioning cataloging agents. Cataloging agents is that agents cataloging the material. So whatever language you decide to use when cataloging, we shall use that particular term in that language. So the terms that are applied to indicate the media type include the following. Audio. We saw this being used for CDs, which are audio CDs. We shall be seeing electronic, especially if we are cataloging websites, then this is the term to use. Microform, microscopic, projected. If someone was cataloging the presentations that I've uploaded in Munimuere, now you can see you are supposed to give the media type as projected. But you also notice that video also applies. So there we already have two terms that we can use. for those presentations. First of all, there are videos, which were, no, but I'm not projecting, I'm not using a projector. So this one wouldn't apply. It would apply if we were in class and I'm projecting using a projector. So the term that will apply is video. Then there will be multiple media and then other media. This is used if none of the terms listed above these applies to the type of carrier and the intermediation device required to convey, use, or perceive the content of the resources being described, then the term other media is given. So if all the above don't apply, then we use other media. So far, we have never used this media type element, but when we use it, these are the terminologies available. But then we shall look at examples, which I already have. Examples of area or where media type is given, it is here. Notice the punctuation device, space, colon space before giving the media type. And this is an audio CD. And this one has no media type, neither do we have media type here. In this, we just have content form, it is a book. In this one, we have content form and two content qualifications, and it is a tactile map. This one has content form and the content qualification, and it is a sheet of music. On the next slide, we have a website. So if you are cataloging a website, first of all, it is text. The content on website is in form of text. But because it is a website, the media type is electronic. And then this one, whatever it is representing, it is given in here. You can see object plus image. So two content form terms, but combined with a plus sign. But the second one has the content qualification, which is a specification of sense, meaning that this sense is what you will use. And from the readings here, this is a 3-dimensional model of a coffee bean and 2-dimensional card with a fragrance coated image of a coffee bean that can be scratched to produce the smell of coffee. And that smelling element is what brings this content qualification. Then in the next example, you can see it is too complex. There is music which is notated, there is music which is performed, and then the media type, it is audio. So from here to there, it is one set. Then we add another test where it is text, and it is also music, which is notated. Then there is music, which is performed, and it is electronic. It is rare that we shall get materials which are that complex. But in case we get them, that is how we transcribe. Then we have multiple content forms and multiple media. And in the editorial comment, this is a resource comprised of multiple forms of content and types of media. There's one printed score, plus one sound disk, plus one CD-ROM. So those are the examples I could give before we get to the actual materials. Now, examples when they are in detail, with all the details. The first one is a globe. Earlier, it was interesting when we would meet in class. There are questions, and Shakira, do textbooks have content qualification? I will ask. I will not ask, I will answer. Shakira, yes. Have you ever heard of audio books? There are books where they also produce sound. such books would have content qualification. Walusimbi members, are you hearing? I think Walusimbi, you need to replace that phone. Yeah, members are hearing. Benjamin, what do you mean by notated? Benjamin, this is evidence that you joined late. Can you imagine, I thought I knew what people would ask. And before Benjamin could ask, I labored to go to Google, searched for the word notated, got the definition, but this confirms Benjamin was not in class by then. So Benjamin, what you do, you go to Google and search for this term notated. And please also search notated meaning in music, then you get images. So those addressed, I go back to our slide. I'll give you 1 minute to look at that example and the full ISBD. I believe now everybody knows what I mean by ISBD, having looked at core. Now this is that format, that is International Standard Bibliographic Description. This is a format which gives all the bibliographic details in an entry. Remember, we had the MAC format in core, which will just give you the tag, and the MAC format will be just indicating 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then under each of them they give you the subfields. So, but what I'm displaying is showing the full bibliographic details by just mentioning the area and what falls under that area. So please look through the content, and when you are doing that, of course, there are things I've not recorded here. Area O is what we call content form and media type area. Area 1 is title and statement of responsibility. Area 2 is edition area. Area 3, which we have not yet studied, this is the area which we refer to material or specific details area. And this area 3 applies, let me try to write in this area 3, that one applies to non-book materials. It applies to non-book. Now you can see that I did some art. So that area 3, we are going to start looking at non-book materials. That area. We have not studied anything yet. And already it shows that this globe is a non-book material. So if we are cataloging a globe, then it means area 3 we shall provide the applicable details. So let me clean my book, my record book. Catalogers should have good handwritings, because the things we write must be clear. When you write something that is not clear, then it will cost you. So I want to go through this record, and this is a cartographic resource, which is a globe. And we saw the definition of cartographic, these materials which represent the whole or part of the earth, and the globe is one of them. And I was saying that in our physical lectures, what I would normally do is I'll bring the globe in class, and also request some of you who have access to globes, you come them with class, rather you come with them in class, and then we start looking for the title of the globe. We look for the place of manufacture. Remember, globes don't have places of publication. They'll be having places of manufacture because they are materials or they are manufactured. And then continuously like that till when we create an entry. So it is really interesting and it becomes a challenge. Now cataloging a globe, you are not there. The globe is also not there. So these are imaginary details of a globe we do not have. So in case we had one, area O would indicate that indeed it is an object. So the term to use for content form is object, and then the content qualification is cartographic. Then the other areas follow normally, except area 3 and area 5. That is where we shall see some changes. But the rest of the content, we record it in the applicable areas. Next example is for a map. A map is also a cartographic material. I normally pick maps from the geography department. The geography department in Makerere has a collection of maps, and we are supposed to catalog those maps. So in area O, the content form term is image, and the content qualification term is cartographic, just like we had for the globe. Rest of the details handled the same way except area 3 and area 5. I hope I don't have questions. Yeah, indeed, there is no question. Area 5, very interesting. The physical description of a map is not similar to a book. For maps, we don't have pages, but we indicate the number of maps we are cataloging. And from that, we move to the physical or the other physical details. This shows that the map is current, and this is the size of the map. You can see now the dimension we give to digits. We give the height and the breadth. But these maps, you know, they are big. Then we also end up giving the dimension when the map is folded. But this, we shall see. We shall see. Excuse me, I had not switched on the source of power for the laptop, and it was dimming. Yeah, I will switch on. So that is an example of a map. So the only new thing is here. This is something we are going to cover when I'm done with the area 1, area 2, then it will be area 3. Area 1 and 2 we have already seen for books, nothing much changes, but it is area 3 that is where we shall be putting some bit of time because it is a new area and it applies to non-book materials. Poster, we have already seen this. When you are cataloging a poster for area O, we indicate that it is an image for content form, and it is still, it doesn't move. That is the content qualification term. So this is an example. The title is Bread and Puppet. This other title, you can imagine it is a poster. Our Domestic Resurrection Circus, 1987. It has another title. So you can see 2 other titles. Interesting discovery. No edition, no area 3. So when an area does not apply, we just omit and move to the next area. Place of publication, it is in square brackets, meaning that this place was not given on the poster. Even the publisher was not given. That is why we have square brackets. But we have the year of publication of the poster. In area 5, we indicate it is one poster. It is an illustration. By default, a poster is an illustration. So it is either colored or black and white, and this means it is black and white. And lastly, the dimension. I hope we are moving together. Other areas which are blank, I don't expect you to come in the note area and say that this poster has an index. Then that shows you did not study with us in the first semester. That ends today's presentation, and I want to just display this particular slide. And then if you have questions, you ask. What have we studied today? Area O, which basically has content, 3 elements: content form, content qualification, and media type. And this is the basic pattern you can get if a material has all the 3 elements. However, there are various patterns I've given in that slide. Allow me to stop here today. I know data is an issue, and I also need to maybe inform you the data was given. I have now 1.6 GB, but remember 2 weeks ago I had 15. So working from home, using data on phone is not like wireless. Whenever I go to the internet, I'm using the data. Whenever I'm supervising students, their research, I'm using data. So I have students I'm supervising internship. Some of them I'm supervising them online on Zoom. So it is data. So those I promised to supervise yesterday, which I didn't do, is because I wanted to give priority to the lectures. And since I'm done with this lecture, now I will be moving in the field to see if the interns are working. So I'm stopping the share, and then when it downloads, I'll share it in Mwere. Just exit. When you exit, I also close the meeting. Have a nice day. Message, akampulira. Mary, I cannot govern the data. This data was given to me for teaching. And unfortunately, some of our colleagues in CIT have not received it as of today. So they were asking whether the data was given to Kidaaga only. But all ISLI staff received, and those who share their phone numbers with the rest. Those who refuse to use their phones might not have received, but mine is getting done. So in one way or the other, you'll see me at ISLIS, because at ISLIS there is wireless. Okay, log out, and I stop the meeting and I save the presentation. Have a nice day.